On this week's Hot List, Lost in Translation, a recent string of emotional conflicts in Bali involves foreign visitors and residents. We ask magazine editor Cheryl Marella, what's the problem there? Crude Food, Jakarta is about to ban the eating of dog and cat meat. What's taken so long? And Height Challenge, a survey finds Indonesians are the shortest people in the world. Really? Hello and welcome. This is Hot Indonesia. I'm Dalton Tanonaka in Jakarta. Let's get to it. Here are my co-hosts, Linda Ibrahim, writer, business consultant, and fact checker, and Karenina Sunny, entrepreneur, Miss Indonesia 2009, and Happy Heart. Hot topic number one, Lost in Translation. There's a long history of visitors to Indonesia's premier resort destination misbehaving, but a string of recent incidents in Bali have led authorities to deport at least 5 people in the past week alone. The offenses range from prostitution to working with an improper permit to simple things such as riding a motorbike without a helmet. Cheryl Marella is managing editor of Tatler Indonesia magazine. She joins us from Nusa Dua, Bali. Cheryl, as you know, Bali Governor Iwayan Koster said Sunday that he's asking for immigration officials to cancel visa on arrival privileges for a certain group, Russians and Ukrainians. And we'll talk about why those groups. Perspective, why such a fuss now when I'm sure similar offenses have happened in the past?
Well, if we're talking about the similar offenses, maybe I don't think it was really similar. If we go back to the older days, prior to the arrival of Russian tourists, I think Australians were making the headlines, right? But most of the time it was about excessive partying, drinking, occasional street brawls, but not really what's happening today. The situation now has evolved to the point where some tourists from Russia are blatantly flouting established rules and regulations. Yes, about the motorbike, of course, but they also starting to take over the jobs that the locals are actually doing. And also not just that, they pretty much, they changed the registration plates and rented vehicles to reflect their names, basically with their names, right? Mm-hmm. Engaging in illegal business activities, yes. Employing individuals without the right visa or right kitas or permits. And there are even reports of the presence of Russian criminal organizations on the island, but it's pretty much like the Russian fighting the Russian as well here in the island. So it's pretty crazy what's happening.
Yeah, we're not generalizing and picking on Russians. It just happens to be the crimes being committed and caught and noticed are committed by Russian nationals. That's what we're saying, right? With specific incidents have been tied to mainly Russian visitors. One more thing. Another change that has come is that the governor said that, or the authorities there said that non-residents can no longer rent a car and drive it themselves. They have to, or from private rental agencies, they have to get it from an authorized travel agency. That seems, to me, an overreaction. What do you think?
No, I think that they're doing the right thing. I think we all need to start having a proper or a right regulations of who can actually drive here in Indonesia, not just Bali, I think. Everywhere in the world, they have their own rules and regulations. Why not here? Why everyone can drive anything in Indonesia? It doesn't make sense. The traffic here is now really, really bad, not to mention all the accident that also happens because tourists don't know how to ride a motorbike. They rent a bike and they went to the street straight away. And accidents happened, right? I think that's crazy. I think they're probably right that you have to rent it out from an authorized travel agents or local business. I think it's also fine, but you need to ask whether or not they have international license. And if they don't, well then don't rent it out to them, right? Or they probably have to go for 3 days or 7 days training first and have like a unpermanent license or something like that, but it has to be like that. And if they rent it out, they also have to have a copy of their passport, let's say. So if they do not give the vehicle back in one piece, then there's going to be consequences. But today, it's not like that. It really is not like that.
I think there's more incidents being reported as well that are not just tied to traffic offenses, but things that are more serious, like illegal business activities and such. Do you think removing the visa on arrival specifically for Russian and Ukrainian tourists, is that the best solution, or what kind of solution would you think is proper for this kind of situation?
I think, to be honest with you, I think we need to remove visa on arrival for everybody, so everybody can actually apply the right way and show whether or not they have a certain amount of money in their banks, because that's what we need to do when we want to go overseas. We have to show them that we are working in our own country, right? We have to show them we have enough money to survive in their country as well. So why don't we do the same thing to them? Because otherwise it's just going to be chaotic everywhere.
Well, we did that during COVID, and the authorities were unhappy because that cut the flow of visitors, and they're just welcoming visitors back. So you're saying go back to something that hurts business tremendously?
No, I think when it comes to a change, you need to be patient, because when you start doing the right thing, you need to enjoy the process, right? There's going to be a timeline when all of the, let's just say, not the right type of tourists that are coming here to not come, and then attract the right kind of tourists, attract the right kind of people who wants to maybe invest, like really invest here and really help people here, but not just random people coming here taking over the island. I think that's just messed up.
I think you're penalizing those who follow the rules by taking away visa on arrival. Why do that for the majority of people who act properly? Okay, Linda, you had something?
Cheryl, you have lived in Bali for quite some time, and you work and socialize with local Balinese. I'm interested to know from you what the local Balinese actually think about all of this shenanigans and the new policies being implemented by the governor.
I have two things to say about that. First of all, yes, I think we all stand up for what's happening right now. We stand up with the government, right? We love that finally they're making or taking a step to change. We love that. We stand by them, and all of the people that I know, the locals, are standing by them as well, the government. But we also need to reflect, right? Because we also are to blame in a way, because from whatever that's been happening, we never really did set right boundaries in the very beginning. We created those loopholes for all these foreigners to be able to do whatever that they're doing right now. So if we really want to pretty much, what do you call that, like fix things, we need to start from us. We need to start from ourselves. We need to know that, okay, if there's a certain rules and regulation, we need to follow it, not try to sell the loopholes to them, because that's what's been happening as well.
Cheryl Marella, Managing Editor of Tatler Indonesia, thank you very much for that perspective from Bali. Ladies, as I mentioned at the top, I believe offensives have been happening long before all this, and that now the different social media is empowering people to report it and also take action on their own parts. Any last thoughts on this? I mean, are we overreacting, or the overreaction is needed?
A little bit overreacting, I think, in saying that tourists cannot rent at all, even from the local rental, because local rental give livelihoods to a lot of people.
Yeah, small businesses.
Yeah, small businesses. So I would say that it's just the implementation of the rules there, as for the driver's license, and check them and penalize them when they make offenses, but not saying that you can't do that at all. You have to remember, Bali does not have a very good public transportation. If now motorbikes cannot be used, they all have to go in buses and cars, and oh my God, I can't imagine.
The traffic.
It might be worse.
It's going to be even crazier, So I think that's a little overreacting, is just that part. But the rest, I completely agree.
Agree?
But I think I read somewhere that the Russian tourists also have fake identification cards, so they would
Yes.
probably have fake licenses as well.
Right, yeah, and that's also happening.
And you hate to single out a single race or country, but that's what's been happening. It's a reality. Okay, Hot Indo will continue shortly with Crude Food, why Jakarta is finally banning the consumption of these animals.
Indonesia. I love the food. Yummy. Wow. I'm gonna hunt for ingredients. Now I'm ready to cook. Let's go to the kitchen. It's done. Let's meet to eat.
Foodiepedia on the Indonesia channel.
Hi, I'm Handi Kurniawan and I'm watching the Indonesia channel in Hong Kong.
Hi, I'm Rory He. You're watching the Indonesia channel, the home of good sport.
I'm Trần Minh Ngân of VCCN Net Việt in Hanoi.
I'm Thairat Thumya of Thailand's Thairat TV in Bangkok.
I'm Monica Sambodet from the National Television of Cambodia in Phnom Penh.
I'm Raymond Go of Malaysia's TV3 in Kuala Lumpur.
I'm Glenda Chong of Singapore's Channel News Asia.
I'm Sachin Thami of the Indonesia channel at the ASEAN Secretariat in Jakarta.
This is your weekly look into the dynamic Southeast Asia region.
ASEAN Today on the Indonesia channel.
The Best of Bali takes viewers on a special guided tour to the treasures of the island of the gods.
Well, the romantic dinner is beautiful.
The Best of Bali, only on the Indonesia channel.
You're watching Hot Indonesia with Linda, Nina, and me. Here's hot topic number 2, crude food. In many countries, it's banned, but still, Asia is home to more consumption of dog and cat meat than any other continent. Here in Indonesia, there's no national law against it, so each province decides. And this week, an activist group says Jakarta has finally decided to make the practice illegal. Dog meat-free Indonesia says nearly 10,000 dogs are eaten here every month. Globally, the total is 30 million. Now, there are different reasons, as we know, why these animals are consumed. For some, it's cultural. For others, I hate to say it, it's simply hunger. Linda, where do you stand?
I personally have lived in a part of Indonesia where not only dogs, but big rats, and bats were consumed.
Yes.
That's in North Sulawesi.
Manado, right?
Manado.
But the difference is those are not pets. That's a difference, I think.
Yeah, but then they don't really look at the dogs that they consume as pets as well.
That's what I'm saying.
That's
yeah,
the other side of the argument.
But nobody walks a bat. I mean, that's the emotional attachment. Anyway, go on. I'm sorry.
Anyway, yeah. So, and for them, it's just a thing that being passed down generations. They don't feel anything weird about it. However, and also in North Sumatra, I heard some parts of North Sumatra still consume dogs. However, when it comes to Jakarta, it strikes me that it kind of odd that they have to say it officially now, because the percentage of Jakartans who eat this very small.
Yeah.
I mean, my whole life, I was born and raised here, and I'm friends with different walks of life of Jakarta people, and I've literally only met one person who said that he consumed dog meat, and the whole reason was because his extended family came from the other 2 provinces I mentioned. So it was sort of like a cultural thing for them, But cat, and I'm a cat person. I've never met someone telling me that they actually eat cats, because I would remember that for the rest of my life.
I think this move is symbolic. The capital has to stand for something, and that's why they're doing it now after never doing it. Many of the animals that are eaten in the capital, particularly, are taken off the streets, strays. Others in other parts of the country and world, they're raised on farms to be eaten. So
that's crazier.
Yeah, and that's so. Nina, I've seen it. You've seen it where dog meat dishes are on the menu or in the window on the plates. Are you okay with that?
Of course not.
Yeah.
I'm actually surprised that the policy hasn't been passed earlier, and why it's only being passed for Jakarta and not all of Indonesia.
And I think maybe because it wasn't a problem here in the capital, like you were saying.
Yeah.
But it's good to have it on the books, you're saying.
I mean, 100%. I think that the policy should be spread across all of Indonesia, and if
The
people
world
are,
even.
it's not for business or money purposes or
Yeah.
hunger purposes. We're so agriculturally blessed. There are so many things, other things that you can eat. You don't need to eat cats and dogs.
You have a dog.
I have a dog.
Yeah.
I take care of 3. Don't eat cats, don't eat dogs. There are so many other things that you could be eating. Please, make this policy for all of Indonesia, not just Jakarta. It's ridiculous in this day and age that it's still even a question. There's so many other things that you could be eating.
Okay, let me be the contrarian here. Okay, Linda. Okay. What
You
makes,
would like to try.
Yeah. Well, what makes us different from other animals raised for consumption? I mean, we don't have cows for pets, right? So we can eat cows. That's the argument. But domestic animals, like dogs and cats, are not in the house to be a meal later. I mean, there's a difference between animals, or is there?
I would say so. However, a friend of mine presented this very good argument. She is a lawyer. She said, cats and dogs, I understand why people are against it. But what about rabbits and bunnies? Because I keep bunnies, in the house, and we use that for Easter parties, and yeah, it is much easier in Jakarta to find bunny or rabbit meat than cat's meat that I know of. I can even tell you where which streets in Jakarta that sell the skewer of bunny meat.
What's also not talked about, but is very common, is horse meat. And that makes me so emotional as well.
Yes.
For me, it's mostly mammals, because when we talk about the difference between animals, mammals have feelings. They do. There's a certain part of their brain that processes emotion. And so when we do these things to animals that feel, it's very different than, say, for example, when you go fishing. Fishes don't have that kind of emotional attachment to their young.
I would argue fishes have feelings.
They say fish they feel pain too.
Of course, no, all living things.
So that's what the activists say.
Even plants.
You shouldn't
feel
subject pain on someone for your own meal. And this is okay. So this is another question, right, about genetics and environment. Jakarta will become the 21st province to ban dog and cat meat, according to the website Coconuts Jakarta. Why do you think, Linda, that this didn't come sooner, especially since Islam, the majority religion, considers dogs unclean?
I think they decided to do something nice this year. And that just falls on things we forgot to mention. But
ahead of the Holy Month.
but really, I don't know why they decided to do it this year. It was never a big problem to begin with Jakarta. If we want to go to the north of Jakarta, there's all the sorts of animals being consumed, and from what I understand, cats are not even on the top 5. There's monkeys being consumed in certain parts of Jakarta. There's videos on YouTube about that, gross videos, and all sorts of other animals. So I don't know why they decided to pass it.
Well, I think I read that they said something about rabies concern, because where the dogs were being imported from East Java, there's a breakout of rabies in the area, and they wanted to contain that because Jakarta
That's a scientific justification.
hasn't had reports. I think they need to give an excuse for why it's important for them to pass the policy. But whatever reasons
they don't need an excuse, right?
They don't need
whatever reasons they're giving, they should.
But that gives a scientific backup to what they're talking about, right?
Right.
But there's been no rabies outbreak among the people who in the parts that consume it. So again, I think it's a symbolic thing. The capital has to take the lead, and the national government should pass it if they're really serious.
Yeah, I would say so. I think it's just somebody to hire. I think it would be a good idea to roll this nationwide. Usually Jakarta takes a lead on issues like this. So maybe they set an example, and hoping that the other provinces will follow suit.
And if the cultural reason, cultures can be changed. I mean, you can get away from doing offensive practices from the past, and I can cite many examples. But cultural reasons to me is the weakest, because you did things before that is not proper now or illegal now. Yeah, so that's the point. Okay, more Hot Indo is ahead. Height challenged. Are Indonesians really the shortest people in the world?
Produk lokal memang handal, kreasi lokal You're watching the Indonesia channel, hot programs, cool people.
I'm Caitlin Turner, and welcome to Yoga Bliss. Exhale, reaching down to triangle pose. Roll your knee out and up to the sky, breathing here.
Yoga Bliss, only on the Indonesia channel. This is the Indonesia channel.
You are watching iPop Playlist.
iPop on the Indonesia channel.
You're watching Hot Indonesia from Jakarta. Hot topic number 3, height challenged. The latest population study comes up with this finding. Indonesian adults are the shortest in the world. The World Population Review says Indonesians average 158 centimeters or a little over 5 feet 2 inches tall. The reason, says WPR, is genetics. We're followed by Bolivia and the Philippines. I'm a bit surprised by this. I mean, yeah, Asians in general are shorter for a number of reasons than the world average. Nina, what do you see? I mean, do you see what this survey says, or do you agree with what the survey says from what you see?
I actually thought it would be Vietnam or Cambodia.
Why?
That would be shorter than us.
Because?
Just a previous list. I actually haven't ever seen Indonesia to be number one on those lists in a while.
We're number
But
one.
I think we may be taking into consideration that Indonesia is so vast, and if you come out within Jakarta, you see a lot of tall people, or tall in comparison for Indonesians or for Asians. But if you go out, in not even just Java, but more towards the east, people do get a lot shorter, and there are a lot of short people. So maybe this survey, takes into consideration the entire of Indonesia, and yeah, it is very possible.
Well, in the past couple of years, we've been in the top 10, and other countries have been above us. This is the first time, I believe, that
why are we getting shorter?
And that's a good question. Besides genetics, I think diet certainly plays a role.
Yeah.
And I mean, I think I ate more meat and milk than my parents did, and that's why I'm taller than them. Linda, are you taller than your parents? Or each generation getting bigger, or no?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
Here's the thing, though. You have to take into consideration that it's a statistic. Statistic takes sample, and then they do weigh in, and then they take the average. Indonesia's population is 280 million. And if you go to, like what Nina say, a lot of other places in Indonesia, the current generation I see a lot of shorter children than their parents. Reasons being, food is getting more expensive. So for their parents' generation, even though they didn't really have a lot of money, but they had access to maybe chicken. I'm not even talking about beef, I'm just talking about chicken. A lot easier than their children. It's getting more expensive, especially as Indonesians live more on the urban cities. A lot of people forget that even though we're still considered a third world country, 60% of Indonesians live on urban setting these days. Not in the agricultural, rural areas. And in the urban setting, you have to buy your food. You don't produce them anymore. And if it's too expensive, you're going to cut down on the food. And that is, I think, what is reflected. If I look around at my friends who live in Jakarta, they work well, they have money. Yes, their children are taller than them. But when I travel to a lot of places in Indonesia, I've seen a lot of people who are shorter than what I remember I saw 20 years ago.
So you're saying it's more than genetics. Diet has a lot more.
Yes. Yes.
So we have to make sure that each generation succeeding us has proper nutrition and enough food.
I think what's going to happen is that the people who have means in Asia are still a lot smaller than people who do not. And it will be reflected on the statistic, because when you take the average and you always weigh down to this side compared to this side, and there's going to be even bigger gap. So you're going to see people who's going to get taller and taller in Indonesia and the rest who do not.
And just to be clear, we're only like 1 centimeter ahead of Bolivia. So it's not like we're really short by far.
No, but Bolivia is one of the poorest countries in the world.
And that explains
what is that saying
their
for
problem.
Indonesia as well?
Yeah, okay. It is feedback time now. And on the topic of wealthy tax workers, Rimba said this: the people fulfill their obligations and pay taxes, but that same money is stolen by officials. And Gurango had this comment on our discussion of domestic movies. Indonesia's film industry is still far behind its music industry. Here's how to contact us with your feedback. Please email at hotIndo@theindonesiachannel.com or comment through our Hot Indonesia or Indonesia channel, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube pages. Final words, Linda.
Earlier this week, one of the happiest days of my life was when Michelle Yeoh, who we talked about last week, finally did win her Oscar. Yay! She's only the second woman of color and definitely the first Asian woman to win the Best Actress at Oscars. And that's a smashing of not just the ceiling, but I think of the shattering of the world, because now, like what she said on her acceptance speech, there's a beacon of hope and possibilities, for all girls and boys who look like her. So, Tan Sri Michelle Yeoh, tahniah from Indonesia. I love you so much.
Final words, Nina.
Please don't eat dogs or cats.
Yes, please don't.
Please don't. I think it's time that we acknowledge that this is a problem and an issue, and I think there are a lot of other things that are available to eat. We don't need to be eating cats and dogs.
And my final words: when you need help, it's true friends who come to your side. Whether they can or can't provide what you're asking isn't the proof. Friends respond to you either way because they care. Those who ignore you aren't your friends. And that's Hot Indonesia for this week. For Linda Ibrahim and Karenina Sunny, I'm Dalton Tanuraka. Thank you for watching. Please join us all next time.